Good morning. I'm Mike Galeazzo with the Regional Manufacturing Institute, and welcome to this wonderful webinar that we're going to have today on funds from the Maryland Energy Administration. But before we begin, before I introduce the folks that are speaking today, I want to remind everybody to please keep your phones muted and the computers muted. Use the chat feature to submit your comments and questions throughout the program. And then at 10 o'clock, we will also be opening it up for questions and answers. So we may ask the questions during the presentation, but we'll definitely raise those questions at 10 o'clock. Also, I want to mention that this program is being recorded, particularly for those who aren't able to join us today, who registered. We'll be able to provide them with a link to this. Let me quickly thank the sponsors. And I want to begin with the Maryland Energy Administration. MEA is the organization that you're going to be hearing about today, but they're one of the sponsors of this event. CFG Bank is a foundational sponsor for RMI. Maryland MEP is a sponsor of today's event. The Maryland Department of Commerce, the MBDA Mid-Atlantic Advanced Manufacturing Center in Baltimore for minority manufacturers is a sponsor, and Baltimore County Department of Workforce and Economic Development. Again, I want to thank all of you for your support of RMI and the manufacturing industry. I'm personally very excited about this series that we're doing to help Maryland manufacturers understand just amazing opportunities with offshore wind. Quite frankly, I didn't really understand it until recently. And when I really kind of understood the opportunities for manufacturers, we quickly decided to start having these webinars to inform people. So when we think about offshore wind, there are two companies that are kind of like key players in this whole offshore wind movement. One is US Wind and the other is Ørsted. So before we get to the specific comments about the MEA program, I'd just like to introduce to you representatives of those two companies. Nancy Sopko who is the Director of External Affairs from US Wind. So Nancy, would you please, I just introduced you, would you please tell us a little bit about US Wind and the role that you're playing with this whole effort for offshore wind here on the East Coast?
Happy to, Mike, and thank you to RMI for hosting us today, and as always, thanks to MEA for their support of offshore wind in Maryland. I'm Nancy Sopko. I'm the Senior Director of External Affairs for US Wind. US Wind is one of the offshore wind developers that is providing power to the region via Maryland offshore renewable energy credits. US Wind has the Maryland lease area off the coast of Ocean City. It is about 80,000 acres in size, which doesn't mean much until you talk about capacity. And so our lease area can fit just under 2,000 megawatts of offshore wind energy in it. And that can power more than 500,000 homes in the region with clean energy. So that is a really healthy amount of clean energy that we can deliver to the grid. Back in 2017, we were awarded an offshore renewable energy credit through the state of Maryland for about 300 megawatts of offshore wind for a project called Marwin. And then just in December of 2021, we were awarded an additional 800 or so megawatts from the state of Maryland for our Momentum Wind project. So both of those projects together totaled about 1,100 megawatts of offshore wind energy. The Marwin project, we are anticipating getting installed in 2025. The Momentum Wind project, we are anticipating getting installed in 2026 or soon thereafter. And then we have a good chunk of remaining lease area for another project in the future. But in addition to our offshore wind projects, we are also building, and this is probably the most relevant to this conversation, we are standing up a facility in Baltimore County that will produce monopile foundations for offshore wind turbines. It is called Sparrows Point Steel. It will be located at Trade Point Atlantic. We have a lease with Trade Point Atlantic for about 90 acres right now. And that is to build out basically a large logistics hub at the former Bethlehem Steel shipyard. We have in an exciting development a few months ago, we signed a preliminary agreement with the United Steelworkers to help staff that facility. We also have agreements with the Baltimore DC Metro Building and Construction Trades, as well as IBEW, to help us build our offshore wind projects. But we are very excited to be standing up a new manufacturing facility in Baltimore County, and really appreciate Baltimore County's support and commitment to this project along the way. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I know I only have a couple minutes. So those are the highlights, and I look forward to the conversation.
Nancy, I'm sorry. Nancy, it's Mike Galeazzo. Thank you so much. And Dundalk is my hometown. I'm from Dundalk, and those steelworkers, those families were friends of mine. So this is really great news. At this time, I'd like to introduce Brady Walker, who is the head of government affairs and policy, Maryland and DC for Ørsted North America. Brady.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for the invitation to be here today. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brady Walker, and I am representing Ørsted North America, the developer of the Skipjack Wind Farm, which is to be built in a federal wind energy lease area off the coast of Maryland and Delaware. Just a couple of words about Ørsted. The company is the U.S. leader in offshore wind energy. We have a total of 8 projects, either in operation, under construction, or in development. Those are across 5 states. And between all of those projects, we are either operating or developing approximately 5 gigawatts of clean renewable power, which will be a really significant capacity add to the grid here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. So really quite excited about that. But as I mentioned, our project locally is Skipjack Wind. It is just under 1,000 megawatts, 966 megawatts between 2 supply contracts with the state of Maryland. One was awarded in 2017 and the other at the end of 2021. The projects are expected to enter commercial operation by the end of 2026, and when they're online, will bring power to about 300,000 homes in the Delmarva region there on the Maryland and Delaware coast. But in addition to developing that project, we are also investing heavily in the development of an offshore wind supply chain in the United States. As many of you know, most of these components are manufactured outside the US right now, and there are a variety of reasons for that. But across our portfolio of projects, Ørsted is investing heavily in bringing those companies to the United States, or investing in companies in the United States to manufacture these large and complex components. And in Maryland, we are investing in the nation's first subsea array cable manufacturing facility that will be located at Trade Point Atlantic. We'll create approximately 500 jobs. We'll supply cable for all of the Ørsted portfolio of projects, in addition to the broader industry, making that really a hub for that kind of component. In addition, we'll be investing in a offshore wind turbine tower manufacturing facility, also to be located very likely in the Baltimore area, creating hundreds of jobs, and again, designed really to support the larger industry, making Maryland a hub for that kind of component construction, heavy component construction. And as Mike, as you were saying, just very briefly, workforce is really top of mind. In addition to a national offshore wind agreement that we signed just recently with the National Association of Building Trades Unions. We are also investing at least $10 million in Maryland and STEM scholarship programming and workforce development partnerships with school systems, community colleges, and universities in the Baltimore area and statewide. So really excited to hopefully work with this organization and your membership as we work to stand up those programs. So thanks again.
Brady, absolutely. We'll help get that word out about what both companies are doing to help attract workers in the workforce. Thank you so much to Nancy and Brady. So at this time, folks, I'm going to turn the program over to Sam Byrne, who is the Energy Program Manager for Wind and Water Program at the Maryland Energy Administration, and Emma Stoney, who is the Energy Program Manager for Wind and Water Program at the Maryland Energy Administration. So Sam, I'm going to let you decide who's going to take it away. I'm not sure if it's you or Emma, but you're on.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Mike. Emma, can you pull up slides? Just give us a moment here.
That's okay.
That's
Can everyone see our screen?
I can say it.
Okay, perfect. All right, Sam, I'll let you take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you, Emma. So like Mike said, I'm Sam Byrne with the Maryland Energy Administration. I'm going to talk briefly about why Maryland is doing offshore wind. If you go to the next slide. The short answer is going to be climate change. We need to reduce our carbon emissions, and we need to increase the amount of energy that we source from clean sources. So this past year, Maryland actually increased its carbon reduction goal. The old goal was 40% by 2030, based on 2006 levels. However, the Climate Solutions Now Act of this year increased that to 60% by 2031 from 2006 levels, and actually requires a statewide net zero emissions, meaning that by 2045, our entire economy, housing, power sector, transportation, agriculture, everything should be creating as much clean energy as it produces. A big key portion of our goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the state is Maryland's Renewable Portfolio Standard, which really seeks to decarbonize the power sector in Maryland. The current goal is to source 50% of all electricity in the state from renewable energy sources by 2030. And a very large portion of that is a special carve out for Maryland's offshore wind renewable energy credit program that Nancy and Brady mentioned earlier. This goal has evolved over time. It was first created in 2013, and you'll see our round 1 and round 2 goals there. And if you go to the next slide. So as both Brady and Nancy mentioned, that Maryland has done multiple rounds of offshore wind procurement, and what you really need to know is that we've approved more than 2 gigawatts of projects that are all going to be online by 2026, and if built on schedule, Maryland will exceed its minimum requirement by 400 megawatts 4 years early. And these projects do present an enormous amount of opportunity for Maryland. These projects will power about 600,000 homes on the Eastern Shore, Delaware, and parts of Maryland. They'll create enormous economic potential as well, which is a great opportunity for Maryland manufacturers to participate in the supply chain. Go to the next slide. So as part of the approvals, the approval requirements rather, as a condition, both developers are required and also have committed to supporting Maryland's offshore wind supply chain. So through the round 1 and round 2 approvals, there will be, as Ørsted mentioned, a new subsea cabling manufacturing facility, most likely in Baltimore. Both developers are also committing funds to port infrastructure and steel fabrication. In addition, US Wind indicated that it would be building the Sparrows Point Steel monopile foundation manufacturing facility also in Baltimore. And then in addition to that, Ørsted will be doing a turbine tower manufacturing facility in coordination with General Electric. Now, all of these investments plus other requirements of the approval total more than $1.5 billion that the companies are required to spend in the state during the development and construction phase of the projects. This is an enormous opportunity for Maryland businesses to get involved in this emerging industry that's new to Maryland. Both developers have also committed and are also required to support small minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses as a part of these in-state expenditures and economic development in Maryland. They each have a different percentage for each of the 4 projects that I mentioned, but in all, it totals about $315 million of that $1.5 billion that needs to be spent with small minority businesses in Maryland. And from here, I will turn it over to Emma to close it out.
Thank you, Sam. So next I wanted to talk about our partnership with the Business Network for Offshore Wind. You may already be familiar with them, but if you're not, they are a nonprofit organization that is focused on creating an offshore wind network and supply chain in the US. And they provide networking and industry relevant training and educational services, and they are here in Maryland. So some of these industry trainings and educational events include Offshore Wind 101, Offshore Wind Ready, and Foundation of Blade. And they can all be found on their website, which I'm actually going to ask Sam to find and link for you all. And through a membership with the Business Network, they provide a Supply Chain Connect portal, which is a way that businesses can publicly show their interest in the industry and their ability to supply components and other parts to offshore wind projects here in the US. It's a big database that has all of the different businesses and the different components that they can provide. And on the MEA side of things, we have 2 grant programs that are specifically targeted at building out an offshore wind supply chain in the US and in Maryland. So our Offshore Wind Capital Expenditure Grant Program provides financial resources to emerging businesses, and it is a flexible grant program that is intended to offset large capital investments that are required for a business to emerge in a new industry. So eligible costs can be only capital expenditures. It can't be anything related to operational costs, but it can be things like purchasing and installing new equipment or expanding your facility, as long as it relates to the offshore wind industry and getting involved in it. Our FY22 budget was $1.6 million, and we anticipate that our FY23 budget will be around the same. The way our grant programs work, at least this one, MEA will award up to 50% of the total project funding, and it cannot exceed $40,000. The limit here with the capital expenditure grant program is there is a legal requirement for emerging business. It goes with our funding source. So at the bottom here, I've defined what an emerging business is. It is just the definition for our grant program. And that is one of 2 grant programs we have. The other one, I'm not going to prioritize as much because I don't think it's as relevant to this group, but we do have a workforce training grant program. This is a grant program that provides financial resources just to workforce training centers. And under this program, eligible costs can be operating expenses such as course curriculum development, certification costs, anything related to conducting trainings, or it can be for capital expenditures, which could be anything like training facility expansion and purchasing equipment. And again, our FY22 budget was $1.2 million. And with this program, MEA will award up to 75% of total project funding, and again, cannot exceed $400,000. And with these 2 grant programs, we anticipate that we will announce them in July of this year, but we will have a formal announcement and we will send that over to RMI to get out on their next newsletter as well. And outside of our offshore wind related grant programs, we have a new grant program. It's called Open. So this provides funding for projects that fall outside of MEA's current grant programs. Anything that could address, energy efficiency, anything related to Maryland's renewable portfolio standard, electric vehicles, greenhouse gas reductions, or anything else related to relevant state law, such as any offshore wind projects. This is a great opportunity because it is a non-competitive funding opportunity. So projects are evaluated as they are received. This was a new program in FY22, and our budget was $1 million, and awards were typically up to $300,000. However, if depending on the project, there is room for that to be slightly higher. And again, this program, we expect to announce FY23 in July, and it will be a non-competitive opportunity. So you can apply for it as you see fit. And that is the end of our presentation. And as always, you can send Sam or I questions via email or give us a call.
Emma, this is Mike. We have some questions for the, let's go back to the
Absolutely.
grant, the capital grant. One
Absolutely.
question is, are there FY22 funds still available?
There are not still available.
Okay.
Our FY22 grant program was announced in November, and the application window closed in February. So we are at the end of FY22, but we expect to announce our new opportunity for funding in July of this year.
Okay.
And we'll send out a formal announcement of that.
Okay. And could you give some, I've got some, could you give some examples to folks for I guess projects that have been funded? I think it'd be helpful if we can illustrate to people under the capital expenditures, maybe some examples. You don't need to name who, but some examples of projects that have been funded in FY22.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a project that was requesting a facility expansion to install a larger garage door, essentially, so that they could have larger ships be able to come into the facility and larger equipment come in. That was a project that was awarded funding. So anything related to, purchasing equipment that's needed to engage in the new industry, or expand your facility in that kind of way, do some sort of renovation because you have to in order to do the kind of work needed to get involved in the industry. The program is flexible in that sense.
So if it's a manufacturer, okay, they do not want to clarify something. They don't have to have a contract at this point, correct, for offshore wind. But if they have a product or that could possibly lead to a contract, is that how it works? That then they can apply for this grant?
Yes, absolutely. And that is the other reason why I was, why I want to connect to the business network and point you in the direction of looking at supply chain, the supply chain portal, right, because that is a good way to see which organizations are already in the big supply chain connect database, and putting your organization in there publicly announces that you are looking to be involved in the industry, and it provides great networking opportunities so that you can figure out where those contracts are, because as the state, we are a little limited. We can provide funding opportunities, but we can't connect each business with the contracts because every business is so specific to the type of work they do.
And I think a number of people that are on this call were in the webinar that we had with the business offshore wind. So they were familiar with that, but I just want to clarify for people, you don't have to be connected with that in order to apply for the MEA grant. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. Okay. So I want to try to give, and if anybody has any questions about specific. So for example, if I'm a manufacturer and I'm a CNC shop, all right, and I need a new piece of equipment, is that something that potentially should be considered for this capital expenditure?
It really depends on the application and how well the applicant connects the need for this new equipment to allow them to enter into the industry or allow them to do the work needed for the offshore wind industry.
Right.
We do have criteria that we go off of. It's on our website. It was in our notice of availability for our FY22 grants, and our programs have to adhere to those criteria. Sam, would you like to clarify anything?
Yeah. So the program at its Emma, if you can actually go back to the program slide. The program is really intended for any sort of capital investment that might be a, for example, we had one grantee relocated and added a second product line for the products that they were offering. We covered some of the expenses of that move and the new equipment that they installed. It can really be used for any sort of installation and purchase of new equipment and or facility expansion or relocation. There's also other things in there that are associated with that, such as realtor fees, legal fees, financing fees, anything related to these capital investments is an eligible expense. In addition, again, as what Emma mentioned, the applications are really graded on their own merits. So if the application basically is able to say, this is my business and this is who we are, this is what we currently do, this is the project, the capital investment that we would like to make, and this is how it relates to the offshore wind industry, that's really what we're looking for in terms of our applications. There is one other additional requirement of the program, is that anything that we fund has to have dual use with another industry. So if you are a company that is currently a shipbuilder, or maybe you are a CNC machinist and you work in many different types of industries and you have products for many different customers, but offshore wind would be one new customer for you, that is an eligible project that we really want to see. Because again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, we're trying to create a new industry, a new market for existing companies in Maryland to enter.
Oh, Sam?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I disconnected myself. I apologize. I lost the screen. Hey, I got a couple of people that had their hand raised to speak, and on my screen, I'm not able to see them. So I'm going to ask whoever has a question, your hand up, if you would unmute yourself and ask the question. If it relates, okay, okay. All right, well, here's a question. What is the timeline for the grant application? I think you mentioned that, but could you repeat that again? The review and the award for FY 23.
Absolutely. So typically, once we announce our funding opportunity, it's about 6 months until we close our application window. So if we announce in July, it'll be the end of the year when we close the application window. And again, we'll do a formal announcement of exactly when that timeline is. But that is the anticipated time where you can keep an eye out for a notice of availability.
Okay, again, if anybody has questions on this, put it in the chat. If somebody has a question after they hang up, and we can send this information out to them, but is your office available to answer questions if somebody has a question?
Absolutely. You can reach Sam or I at the email at the end, which I can go to if you want to write it down, or you can always give us a call.
Right. And just to remind everybody, we'll be sending out to everybody information, contact information, and also the link to this video. So we'll make sure that you get all this if you haven't written it down, and it's in the chat as well.
We also have a third email account dedicated to the WIN program. It's win.mea@maryland.gov. I put that in the chat for everyone.
Okay, somebody can. Any questions? And again, I can't see, for some reason, I can't see if anybody's got their hands up. I know we have quite a few manufacturers. Well, I think you've covered everything as it relates, as it applies to this capital expenditure. I think this is a great program. I think particularly for people who want to get into a new niche, a new market, and RMI is here to try to help encourage you to take the steps necessary to compete for these funds. If you go back to that earlier presentation, there's a significant early part of Sanskrit, significant amount of money tied in with this whole offshore wind effort. and a great opportunity for Maryland manufacturers. So I'm going to ask one more time if anybody's got a question. I don't see anybody. Okay, well, listen, if we don't have any more questions, I think we were saving 10 o'clock for the time for questions and answers, but we'll continue to provide information to everybody about the application timelines and things of that sort. And you'll have Sam and Emma's information, so you can call them if you have questions. And as I had mentioned earlier, we'll probably be doing a webinar later on for more information about Ørsted and US Wind. And we're also can help you if you need to reconnect, because Sam and Emma talked about the offshore network, to reconnect with them. We'll help you with that. So I'm going to take one more time. There is a question here. Somebody, I think it relates to this program. What types of employers are you hoping to attract? Have you been, I think they're asking, what kind of companies are you looking to attract to go after this money? Basically, you're looking for companies that are going to eventually will play a role, correct, in offshore wind. But Sam or Emma, do you want to take that question on?
Yeah, so it's really open to any different type of new or existing business in Maryland that is going to make an investment. We don't really have any requirements or goal for types of employers, but it's really the businesses that are going to be able to participate in the supply chain. So in some cases, that's going to be companies that provide services. In other cases, it's going to be manufacturers or fabricators. And in some cases, it'll even be construction companies.
And again, on the Business Offshore Network website, they do have a directory, correct? That kind of identifies the various types of, I guess, products and services that they'll be looking for.
Yes.
So if people haven't looked at that, they really should. And we'll send that back out to everybody. All right. Well, I don't see any other. Let me just check. Good info, Mike. Thanks for that. Okay. All right. Well, listen, everyone. Thank you very much. I want to thank Sam and Emma for a great presentation, and we'll be sending the information out to everybody. You have my number, you have Stacy's number, so just reach out to us if you think you need our help in connecting with these grant opportunities. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and have a good day, and thank you again, folks. Bye-bye.